good evening, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the program. Glad to have you here today. I screwed up. It shouldn't say in the sub headline below my little graphic here, I put legacy media vows war on men, but that's not new. They've been doing that now for a decade. I should have put in there, legacy media is scared. That's genuinely what they are. There's no other word you can call it. They're scared. They're panicking. They're freaking out. They're calling us names. They're yelling at us. They know they've lost the narrative. They know legacy media is losing views, and people like Joe Rogan and podcasters and like Aiden Voss and the young tribe of men are coming up, and they see through all the bullshit, and they're desperately scared. I have a super clip of 10 minutes, and it's not just mainstream news. It's also Joe Rogan and some other things. But when legacy media can only spout one side to the point you know they're lying about men, about what we want, about boys can be girls, about how we're all, I don't know, ists and phobes and all the rest of it, and they can't admit why video games are failing and movies are failing, and no one listened to the 100 movie stars that came out to support one candidate over the other. And it's not about the politics. That's what's so exciting about this. Now, I know for us Americans, it's a very exciting moment in time because the candidate that most of us liked won. But believe it or not, that's not it. This was a moment when legacy media has spewed forth all their bullshit for like a decade now, and people got in to go into a booth and vote and push a button that says either A, I listen to the media, and I listen to these Hollywood actors and actresses telling me that it's orange Cheeto, bad man, whatever. And I get to go in and vote on your policies. And overwhelmingly, Americans said, no, thank you. We're not interested in your tripe anymore. And the media has to sit there and say, well, we thought for sure this was going to be a blowout, just like 2016. Where are we getting it wrong? And now they're scared. They're so scared, and this is a real headline. What I'm going to show you right now is a real headline from the Daily Mail. Ivy League students are offered crayons and Legos and cookies with milk to cope with Trump's election win. This is a real headline. This is a real story. These Harvard elite that have been coddled, well, not just Harvard, but all these college elites that are in for all the weird things and the 73 pronouns and all the other crazy stuff. They can't handle life anymore. And in the meantime, we men are out there doing our 9-to-5s. We've taken our lumps. We've been yelled at. We've been called names. And what do? We rally. We rally the forces, and we come right back at them. This is just one of the stories I'm going to read. I have lots of video to get to, but I want to set the atmosphere for you. This is legacy media. And when legacy media, like Wired.com, has some feminists or some male sympathizers or whatever you want to call them, when they have to come out and say, yes, we're losing now, we've been beaten, we're in an echo chamber and something's gone wrong, that's a good sign, even if they still have to take their digs at us while they write the story of them losing. From Brian Barnett over at Wired, the manosphere won. Donald Trump owes at least part of his 2024 presidential election victory to the manosphere, the amorphous assortment of influencers who are mostly young, exclusively male, and increasingly the drivers of the remaining online monoculture. They're saying, we have legacy news, we have legacy newspapers, we have all this legacy stuff, and people are not listening to it anymore. They can see the numbers, they see the subscription numbers, and then they look online and they see Joe Rogan doing a podcast with Trump and getting 40 million views on it, with J.D. Vance getting 10 million views, with doing one with Elon Musk getting 20, 30 million views, with Vivek Ramaswamy, all these names, and they're saying, what's going on? And then in the meantime, CNN, MSNBC, all the crazies, they're losing the culture because the people that watch them are dying. They're old. They don't understand the internet. They don't understand that we live in the time when you can put up some lying BS video and instantly within 10 minutes, somebody's got a supercut of what was really said with what the media is lying about. With your agenda versus reality. With, oh, this video game's awesome versus 1,000 reviews that it sucks. This movie is a shining example of feminism and strong women. The $200, $300, $400 million box loss. The internet is, for its many failings, it is the arbiter of truth, because now the little people like me and the rest of us, we nobodies, we get to argue back and our voices get to be heard. So much so that I've actually been blocked by members of the KISS band, for example, or politicians online, because one of my comments got 3 and 4 and 5,000 likes and they didn't like it and they blocked me forever. But that means they heard me. Some asshole sitting out in a metal building in the middle of Tennessee in the woods, and Paul Stanley, a member of KISS, didn't like what I said so much that he blocked me so he could never hear from me again. That means he heard me. That means I pissed him off. That's a win. And that's where the internet changes tides. I'm going to read a little bit of this story. We're going to read why Ivy League intelligentsia are eating milk and cookies and coloring with crayons over this stressful day as they cry into their, I don't know, hems of their skirts. And I'm talking about the men when I make that comment. And then we'll get into the supercut of videos I have of the media actually losing its shit. And it's, it's so sweet. It's like candy on my lips. Donald Trump will once again be president of the United States. It wasn't especially close. What came as a shock, unless you watch or listen to Theo Vaughn or the Nelk Boys or Aiden Ross or Andrew Schultz or Sean Ryan or, yeah, sure, Joe Rogan, but he's probably the only one you've heard of. You're going to hear a lot of people attribute Trump's win to all kinds of reasons: inflation fatigue, immigration fear-mongering, President Biden's doomed determination to have one last rodeo. But he owes at least part of his victory to the manosphere, that amorphous assortment of influencers who are mostly young, exclusively male, and increasingly the drivers of whatever monoculture remains in an online society that's long been fragmented all to hell. But let's think about it. Is it mostly young? I mean, Joe Rogan's coming up on his 60s. I mean, he's well into his 50s. You've got even left-leaning people like Russell Brand. You've got Jimmy Dore. These are not right-leaning people. They're certainly middle-aged or upper middle-aged men. Elon Musk is in his 50s, and he arguably owns the market for social media right now when it comes to political discourse. But it's not just that it's the older men, it is the younger men, and it is these young influencers. And Donald Trump respected them and the groups that they talked to enough to go on their shows, and it made a difference. And legacy media doesn't have a foot in this realm. I mean, they do. They've got the Young Turks and, I don't know, some of these other leftists. But the problem with the online discourse is that you can be caught in lies and you can be called out. Heaven knows I've been called out on some things that I've done. But that's the beauty of this, is that anyone has a voice. They say it was on one of these podcasts and streams that Trump spent a disproportionate amount of time in the final weeks of his campaign, and for good reason. That list above, plus Tucker Carlson, includes the 4 biggest podcasters on Spotify. Trump sat with all of them, often for hours, reaching millions of conservative or apolitical people, cementing his status as one of them, a sigma, a guy with clout, and the apex of a model of masculinity that prioritizes fame as a virtue unto itself. For many young voters who weren't paying attention in 2016 and 2020, a generation that overwhelmingly gets their news from social media feeds rather than mainstream outlets, this was also their first real exposure to Trump. Trump used these podcast appearances to both humanize and mythologize himself. He used them to launder. Now remember, we're reading from legacy media, so they have to put their bias in here. He used them to launder his extremist positions through the pervasive can't you take a joke filter that propels Tony Hinchcliffes of the world to stardom. Most important of all, he used them to get out the vote. Now, see, this is the leftists not having the ability to take a joke or tell a joke. This is the leftists' inability to find humor. It's their inability to actually connect with people in a real way. That's one of the things that many people said, both about Harris, about people on the news, is it's sound bites, it's pre-prepared information, it's talking points, it's not real conversation. Joe Rogan had a very real conversation. He offered that real conversation to Kamala Harris, who said no. Joe must come to her, and they'll only do 45 minutes, and they have to agree to this, and they have to have staffers present to be able to shut things down if it didn't go well. Trump just walked in and said, "What's up? Let's have a conversation." And he did. Love him or hate him, he had a 3-hour conversation, and he said what he thought. Maybe you think he's lying. Doesn't matter. He sat down and did it. This is the new discourse. And this is why they keep coming after social media, and they want to shut down channels that talk about men's issues and that talk about divorce and that talk about dating and that talk about all the other men's issues, and men talking about don't get married and don't get suckered and don't give women money and don't when you get divorced and all the things that we've talked about for years. That's why they silence. That's why they demonetize. They don't want men to have this information. And this now is what really scares them, because it's no longer the fringe weirdos that are incels that are hiding in the corners of the internet. Now the manosphere controls elections. Now the manosphere is the new wave of news. And it's not really the manosphere, but because it's men driving this discourse, they're going to label it as such. And I'm fine with that. Because there's a whole lot of women apparently now that are fine with the manosphere because they also like Joe Rogan and they also support Elon Musk, and 53% of them voted for Donald Trump, at least the white ones. They're scared and they know it. They're on a timeline where their viewers and the people that like them are going to die. And we have the young generation, the young group of men, the strong men, the opinionated men, the asshole men, the men that want to talk about how they feel and what makes them proud and what makes them strong and what they believe in. We have MMA. They have the Golden Globes. Let them have that. There's so much that we have our own large tent that now a lot of people are finding. And they say, you know what, I may not agree with everything you say. I've had many people that listen to me and they send me emails and they're like, I only agree with about half of what you say. But I like your content. I find it amusing. Great. It's not about agreeing. It's about having the conversation. They don't want us to have this, and they're scared about it. From MSNBC, how Joe Rogan and the right-wing manosphere helped propel Trump to victory in 2024. They're automatically taking manosphere, men, conservatives, traditional, and they're putting us all together. They recognize. They see the truth of it. During Trump's raucous victory party on Tuesday in West Palm Beach, Florida, a fired-up Dana White, president of the wildly popular UFC Fighting League, approached the microphone to thank the people who made the Republican-dominant win possible. After praising Trump as one of the most resilient, hardworking men ever met in my life, White said, "I want to thank the Nelk boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Bussin' with the Boys." It's the same thing. Now, in this article, they go through and they tear apart Elon and they tear apart Joe Rogan and they tear apart all of us awful men that have our own opinions. And again, this is literally a 12-minute supercut of video of the media freaking out, and we're going to get there in just a moment. I want to set the picture. From the Daily Mail, Ivy League students are offered crayons, Legos, and cookies with milk to cope with Trump's election win. These are the people we're supposed to look up to. These are the educated, the better of us, the better men that will guide this country's future. They also happen to have they, them pronouns and wear skirts and cry when things don't go their way and need timeouts with cookies and milk as they color with crayons to process their emotions. This is why the culture is finding its strong men again, because too many people see this and they aren't in with it. Ivy League schools across the U.S. Ivy League schools across the U.S. canceled classes, postponed exams, and told students they could color in with crayons and offered milk and cookies to cope with the orange man resounding victory in the presidential election. Harvard University and the University of Pennsylvania, which is Donald Trump's alma mater, told students they could take the day off. At Harvard, classes ranging from applied math to the study of ancient Greek heroes were called off, the Harvard Crimson reported. University of Pennsylvania professors hastily adjusted exam schedules and offered additional support to students reeling from Trump's win, the Daily Pennsylvania reported. At Georgetown University's McCourt School of Public Policy, a self-care suite for students offered students the chance to play with Legos, doodle with crayons, and munch on milk and cookies in recognition of these stressful times, the Free Press reported. These are the people that we, as men, are told to look up to. This is the left. These are the people in legacy media. These are the people writing articles about how they hate us. These are the people on social media saying that we're a bunch of incel losers. And then when things don't go our way, we decide to fight back. We decide to do YouTube channels. We decide to publish our own stories. We decide to get together and create websites where we can have discussions and talk about culture. How are we going to fix this? How are we going to boycott? How do we spend our money to push back against the insanity from these companies? How do we get somebody elected? And what do they do when they lose? They drink milk and cookies, and they cry, and they doodle with crayons. Do you see why most of us men aren't really scared about the future of this country or even the world? Because they will collapse at the first sign of distress. They already are. And the only thing they didn't get is their way of a politician. Neither did many of us for the last 4 years. How did that turn out for everybody? It sucked. But did you see, I don't know, Elon Musk crying? No, he bought Twitter. This is why this isn't about politics right now. It's about the crumbling of the establishment that is weak, and they've weakened themselves. And by ostracizing and chasing out strong, intelligent, aggressive, masculine, stoic men, they're now a house of cards. They're a pile of twigs to be blown away in a stiff wind. And the rest of us are in the trenches. And the rest of us are pointing out the madness. And the rest of us are making fun of all the establishments falling apart as they fall to their knees crying. And we love it. Delicious. The salty tears are so sweet on our lips. Dartmouth College also offered distraught students a decompression dinner and listening circles to console them after Kamala Harris lost the 2024 presidential election. Event organizers at Ivy League School encouraged its students to be off the grid the day after the election and join them at Moosilauke Ravine Lodge for a decompression dinner. They would hold hands and sing Kumbaya and cry into their scones and pastries. They didn't say that. That's just my impression of it. On and on. Different colleges, different safe spaces, different crying, different class cancellations. And these are the people that we tell we're supposed to look up to and we're supposed to listen to. I mean, I could keep going. I think you'll actually find it boring. It's more delicious tears. That's all it is, from our better men. TV ratings, election night, viewing drops. Now we'll get into the media, the news media portion of this. TV ratings, election night viewing drops sharply. Fox News, which is relatively conservative, and while Fox News isn't necessarily conservative during the day, they do have conservative pundits on at night that do their opinion shows. And many of them I like. Jesse Waters I like. Greg Gutfeld I like. Fox News led all the networks in primetime, but audiences were smaller across the board compared to 2020. Where did they all go? Primetime coverage of presidential election averaged 42 million viewers across 18 cable and broadcast networks. That's roughly, what, 2-ish? 2.2 million people averaged per cable broadcast. Dan Bongino and two other Rumble video, what do you want to call it, videocasters, podcasters, they beat that over on Rumble. That's a steep 26% decline 4 years ago. Well, where are they all going? I'll tell you where they're going. They're going to Rumble. They're going to X. Media TV viewership dropped 25% across 18 live networks compared to 2020. X, which formerly Twitter X, global all-time high platform usage with plus 15.5% new user signups and 43% signups during vote counting. This is where people are going for their news now. It doesn't necessarily make it any more accurate, but it means we can have the conversation. It means there's community notes. It means that a little asshole on the internet like myself can leave a comment to somebody that's in, I don't know, a band or a musician or a politician or whoever, and then they'll block me, which means I was viewed. Thank you. It is a badge of honor. Here's the mainstream news and viewership. Just a handful of years ago, about a decade, your NBC, ABC, CBS evening news viewership, 10 million, 9 million, 7.5 million. Snap forward to 22 and a half. This doesn't even take into account the last 2 years. Now they're down to below 5 million, below 6 million, around 5.8, and roughly 7 million. They're down 40%. And that's not taking into account the last couple of years of Biden and them lying about Biden. So now it's even worse. They're losing the grip. And they say, well, it's men. It's these young men. It's these jerks. It's the manosphere losers. Now I'm going to mute this. I'm going to mute this simply because I want to put this on YouTube. But of course, it is Trump and his YMCA. Right? Okay. It's Trump's YMCA. I'm going to mute this. And what do you see here? I don't know about you. This looks like a young college-age woman in a Trump skirt, a Stars halter top, and a Trump 2024 hat. This is a young lady. And wait a minute. Now, so is this. Wait, and this is a young gentleman dancing in a suit and tie. Wait, another young lady. What is another? Wait, this seems like a lot of young normies. This isn't the manosphere. This isn't incels hiding in their basements, lashing out at the world because no woman wants to date them. Well, this is a college party. It's a college party held exclusively because Trump won the election. It's almost as if the original manosphere that was surrounding men's issues, and the term has now ballooned up to include other normal people that don't believe the BS anymore. Are they saying that the manosphere now includes women? That it includes... Oh, no, this is from a college campus. I see you guys in the chat. This is from a college campus. There's tons of videos out there of people celebrating on college campuses. I'm going to jump into a supercut now. This is mainstream, lamestream, legacy media starting to realize they've lost the plot, starting to realize they're no longer relevant, starting to realize they're deeply in trouble and they're scared. And there's two camps. There's the camp that says, guys, we're screwing up. We're missing something here. We need to reach out. We need to talk to these. We need to figure out, like, we're doing things wrong. We're losing the culture war. And there's the other type that is, they're not racist, Hitler-loving, big, misogynist, homophobic assholes, and we must shut them down and we must destroy them. So even the left can't agree on how they're going to come after us. Let's get into the supercut. I think you'll enjoy it.
I think in a normal country, we would say, hold on a second, maybe we need to have a different set of regulations for social media platforms now that they're this big.
It would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
I have this sort of insatiable interest in every bit of wisdom you can impart. And as a journalist, I hear you about girding ourselves for this moment. As a human, I deleted Twitter today as an act of self-preservation, and because I was no longer able to find the things I was interested in, and was seeing a lot of things that I'm not.
All right, I'll pause here. Okay, we need to regulate social media. We've got to shut them up. They've gone rogue. They're not listening anymore. They're not allowing us to control the narrative. They can say whatever they want. Misinformation, disinformation. They're sharing lies. Well, the difference is that when legacy media shares a lie, they don't get to hear back from the people saying, no, here's reality. Here's a clip where you cut this out. Here's where you didn't. Here's where this. They just get to spew their bullshit like Pravda and then hide in the dark. Those days are done, but they're going to try to come for social media. Here's the best part. They tried to come for it, and Kamala Harris came out and said she was going to shut down social media. They were going to come for the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. They were going to shut it all down. They were going to put in guardrails. Guess what? You've lost. Now we have 4 more years to continue to build the empire that is Rumble and Locals and X and other social media where we get to tell the truth, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. So that's 4 more years of people being red-pilled and finding the truth online, no matter what it is. And then you've got this lady here who's now fading into blackness, who said, I can't find anything that I want to hear on social media anymore, so I uninstalled it. This is the la la la, I can't hear you. I'm going to stick my head in the sand because I can't find anyone that wants to listen to my tripe and believe my bullshit. And when I say something they don't like, they yell back at me. And my fifis get hurt, so I am leaving. Bye. I got something for that.
So you get nothing. You lose.
Right off. Thank you. You can go back and keep doing your little MSNBC bullshit. We don't care. You're going to become irrelevant. And again, some of these news people on CNN, MSNBC, they realize it. They even say, we're irrelevant now. We'll keep going.
Not particularly the media ecosystem it's not a...
Now, first of all, okay, sorry to keep interrupting, but I just slammed all these together and I have shit to say. This guy with the spiky white hair that is about as masculine as Rosie O'Donnell. No, actually, he's less masculine than Rosie O'Donnell. He wants to tell us how to think about masculinity and feminism, and no.
It's not a good one. It's a negative one. It's a radicalization funnel. But what they have done in their online media ecosystem is build a radicalization engine, literally the way militant groups do around the world, that takes people from relatively low-level annoyances with the world. Why are eggs so expensive? Why is my kid learning this new thing in American history in school that I didn't learn? And then moves them through YouTube videos, through podcasts, moves them from that annoyance all the way slowly to a full-blown fascist politics. It's an elaborate multi-billion-dollar infrastructure, and there is nothing like it on the pro-democracy side. We don't have when a man is just lost and lonely and not yet radicalized, we don't have the equivalent of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson to move that man in a feminist direction.
Why would a man want to move in the feminist direction? Why would a lonely, lost guy want to fall into feminism, lose the last 3 drops of testosterone he has in his body, and sound like you, Captain Lispy? Why? Because then you can control him. Then you can manipulate him. Then you want to talk about online being a radicalization. When men didn't get what we wanted, we decided to band together and have talks and have discussions about how we can go our own way, how we can grow, how we can be happy with the state of the world. When you don't get what you want, you're eating milk and cookies and coloring in boxes with crayons at universities with your other feminist friends. And you want to say that we're the ones that are loony and radicalized? Do you even hear yourselves? They have lost the plot so much that this is their message. Good luck to you. Good luck. That's all you can say with this. This is the most, it's maddening how stupid this is.
By the way, we should educate men that it's actually really great to live with a strong woman who makes money. It's actually easier. Life is easier.
Where did that come from? What does that have to do with anything? Because now he's not talking about politics red pill. Now he's not talking about politics manosphere. Now he's talking about us. Now he's talking about people like you and me that say, I don't want a strong woman. I don't care how much money she makes. I don't want that. I don't care about her degree. I don't care. I want a feminine woman. I want a woman that won't have a high body count. I want a woman that won't cheat. See, he's now starting to talk about us because they see it as all one big pool. This big pool of quote unquote lonely men that are making decisions for themselves, and they're not listening to us anymore, and they're not on board with feminism, and they're masculine and they're strong, and they don't listen to us and we can't control them. It's all one and the same to them. That both red pills have combined true manosphere content and conservative red pill content, because that's also called red pill because of the Republicans having red in the... It's all combined into one big red pill. It's men that don't do what we want. That's the manosphere to them now. I'll take it. That's fine. Because that just drags all of these men and their issues and they're being tired of the bullshit and everything else. It drags them into one big pool. How are you? And we're not listening. And they're scared. They're scared. They're having their own struggle session right now with what is going on in the world.
But I think... And here's how we got beat. We got beat because the Republicans and conservatives built a different media system that had to do with online, had to do with podcasts, had to do with streaming platforms, and they were spending their money there. We were laughing at them and knocking on doors in Philadelphia and Detroit. It was like, there's no Trump people. They're not dropping literature. They're not knocking on doors.
In fact, it was laughing like, oh, Elon Musk and Charlie Kirk, but their PACs don't know what they're doing.
We were making fun of Donald Trump for having thrown away his ground game and doing some weird stuff online. We thought that they were idiots. It turned out we were the idiots. We woke up in a body bag because while we were knocking on doors, they were making these phones into 24-hour-a-day political weapons for themselves. And so we got outflanked, outplayed, outbeat by people who told us the whole time that they knew what they were doing.
Now, that's important. Now, he's talking about politics in this clip, right? But he says it. You know, we were doing this, we were doing that. We were laughing at them because they're just a bunch of weirdos on the internet, right? And they're the ones that woke up in a body bag. The same thing happened to Hollywood. The same thing happened to feminism. The same thing happened to woke. It's all the same. People like myself and many of the other content creators you watch, we talk about men's issues. Now, you may not have heard these people that I'm going to list, but they're other YouTubers and they're on Rumble and things like that. But you've got The Critical Drinker, and you've got Nerdrotic, and you've got Heels versus Babyface, and you've got Shadiversity, and you've got Nina Infinity, and you've got more and more and more. And they have YouTube channels with millions of subscribers and millions of views that just tear apart Hollywood and the woke agenda. That's all they do. And so people like myself, probably like many of you, they go and watch that instead of going to watch the movie itself. My production, let me put it back on me here for a second. My production costs me a little bit of electricity and the internet and my coffee. It's $5 versus hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in Hollywood. Our message is plentiful. It's from average people. Yours is scripted, it's bullshit, it's woke, and it's nonsense. And we're at the ground game because you guys know I'm pretty much like you. You're like pretty much like me. We have some minor differences. We're just a bunch of assholes sitting around looking at the internet all day. They think they're better than us. They always have. They speak down to us. They did during COVID. They did during elections. They speak down to us. And so this underculture, the real culture, is on YouTube. It's on Rumble. It's on X. And these politicos don't understand it. How did men's issues become mainstream where Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and Jesse Waters on Fox News, where they're using our talking points out in the world? How did we start become mainstream? Because we've been just quietly doing this in the background, and it makes sense, and people see truth to it, and it resonates with people, and they say, yeah, I see this too. Yeah, I've noticed this too. Yeah, why is this? It's resonating. They don't understand it. And so why they spend these billions trying to control, whatever, in the meantime, the real people we're all having different discussions. And just now they're starting to realize, hey, we missed the boat. We're in a lot of trouble here.
You've always been sort of the leading edge of where media is going with Politico, now with Axios. You understand the environment so well. How do Democrats, and frankly, how does legacy media need to change the way it thinks about getting information? I mean, a lot of the voters who went out and voted for Donald Trump, that so many people are wondering what happened here, they're not watching, frankly, this show. They're not reading the New York Times. They're not consuming media that way. And the Trump campaign found those voters where they live. So how do Democrats need to change the way they communicate to voters, if you think that's part of the problem?
For sure. I mean, I think all of us have to come to grips with legacy media is just not as important as it thinks it is. It is to you, it is to me. That's a relatively small group of people who rely on us for their information. And you have to go into the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And basically, the way people get information is shattered into 20, 30 different pieces. And so if you just look empirically at the numbers, Joe Rogan's more important than any of us. He just has a much bigger, hyper-connected audience that listens to his every word. So maybe listen to Joe Rogan and try to understand, what is he talking about? What are the guests that he has on? What are the issues that they care about? Realize that the gravity of right-wing discourse is now taking place on X. It's not Fox. X is what matters. Elon Musk is now, I wrote about this yesterday, arguably the most powerful civilian in the history of the country. He controls information flow. He controls multiple businesses. He has the president's ear. He's going to be in charge of some newfangled organization to gut government spending. We've not seen a person with that kind of clout across those sectors. But where his real power comes from is X. People thought he was an idiot when he bought X because he lost a lot of money. He's got a lot of money. And now he happens to have the most powerful platform on the right. And politics is downstream from information. And there's just a whole new information ecosystem out there. So for us, for you, for Democrats, for Republicans, you have to understand that you now are going to have to basically navigate 20 or 30 different parts of the ecosystem if you want to connect with the American people who vote.
Now, this is important, and this is his name's Frank Bruni, and he nails this perfectly. Now, if you notice on this, here's the twink over there with the spiked up white hair that was talking a minute ago. Here's Al Sharpton. Here's Morning Joe, the married couple up there on the top. And they're the ones that are all screaming like, we need to shut it down, and these people are this, and these people are that, and these people are horrible, and we need to censor it. And here's the only guy that's really saying it like it is. You don't matter anymore. We don't matter. We, as in the people on TV, we don't matter anymore. There's a new place to have the conversation. It's Twitter. No one's listening to us anymore, or a small portion is. And they're the old boomers that are probably going to die in 15 minutes anyway. The new conversation is on X. The new conversation is Spotify and podcasts and YouTubers and people on Rumble and etc. They're losing the battle, and out of most of them on this panel, the only guy that really sees it is this Frank Bruni guy. And he's like, you guys are losing. You're irrelevant. I had like a 5-minute supercut I was going to play where it's these idiots on Morning Joe and Al Sharpton and the rest of these mouth breathers that were just calling all of us, the ones that don't listen to mainstream media, the ones that don't like Harris, the ones that don't like feminism, the ones that don't like the LGHD TV community. They just were calling us horrible names and deriding us and being derogatory for us for 5 minutes. And I said, you know something? That's just kind of a waste of time. I'm not going to play that. Because we've heard it before. We've heard it for a decade from you mouth breathers. And we're through with it. And finally, now, at least some of them are starting to say, geez, you know what? We're losing the plot here.
Connect with the American people who vote.
One of the big losers, the celeb crowd. We touched on this yesterday. Beyonce, loser. Oprah, huge loser. J-Lo, you matter. Pfft, loser. No one cares what you think. If you want to talk to me about what it is you're doing to your skin, I'm all in. Go on. You got my full attention. If you want to tell me who to vote for or what's happening with the economy or immigration, please sit down. No one cares. Taylor Swift, sorry. You effed around and found out. You do not have unlimited influence. The young girls love you because you sing songs about men who break up with you, and they can all relate to that. No one gives two shits about your political opinion, so you should take it and stuff it.
I put that clip in there as a little reminder to myself, because this is a point that I wanted to hit. And Megyn Kelly, she's on Sirius XM. She's got a very large show. A lot of people watch her, including a large number of women. But what she says was a little reminder to me, and that's why I dropped this clip in there. Eminem and Obama and Megan Thee Stallion and Bryan Cranston and these Hollywood elites that come out here and say, oh, listen to this person and listen to this. It's over. You're irrelevant. You're irrelevant. No one cares. You're elite. You're rich. You can piss money for a hobby and will never struggle for groceries. We don't care who you're going to vote for. We don't care about your awards. We don't care about your preaching about the LGHD TV. We don't care about, let me see if I can find this quickly. We don't care about the message. We don't care about any of that shit. We're done with it. We're done with it. And ironically, Taylor Swift lost a lot of, I think several 100,000, if not millions, of supporters on her Instagram and the other when she came out and supported Harris. Because a lot of people say, I don't care. Shut up. Shut up. You're just vapid. And I wanted to put that reminder in there because, again, the people that are used to the control and the power, such as, Obama and former politicians and the politicos and the lobbyists and the TV stars and the movie stars and the musicians and the NBCs and ABCs and CBSs, you're losing. You're losing. You have no power here. You have no power here.
I just don't think they can recover. Let's pause here. No repercussions. Yeah.
You want to talk about misinformation? We have to censor social media because of misinformation.
Right.
You guys spread misinformation to the biggest news organization, the biggest news audience in the world.
Yeah.
And you did it for 3 years.
Yeah.
You did it for 3 years. And then when it turned out that it wasn't true, you never apologized.
Legally, or people getting fired.
The news
or,
media.
Yes, but I'm saying this is the ramification. The ramification is that they're not going to be able to pull it off again.
Right.
And the ramification is that, look, they did everything they could to tell you this was a Nazi. This was the end of democracy.
Yeah.
But he incited an insurrection. And the American people said, we already get that you're full of shit.
They cried wolf.
Yeah. Too
They
many
cried wolf.
times.
Way too many times. Way too many times.
Right.
But it's crazy how many rich and famous people stepped in line to help them take him out.
Yep.
Like so many famous, influential people. But then when you have some of them that are making videos, all the Avengers get together, like, hey, are you trying to get me to hate superhero movies? You trying to show me your real fucking weird personalities and get me to hate superhero movies? Why are you doing that? If I was running the Avengers, I'd be like, hey guys, cut the shit. Do you think one fucking person is going to vote because they saw that Iron Man wants them to vote? Are you
Yeah.
And you want to, in any way, shape, or form that's possible, turn that person into a demon. You never want to have someone who has an opposing perspective that should be considered or maybe countered with better information, which is what we're all supposed to be doing. Ideally, with people of good character and who go into arguments with good faith, you should be able to respectfully disagree and have conversations with things. This is like everybody who thinks one way is bad. Everybody who thinks this way is good.
The reason why this is actually a podcast I watched with Dave Smith and Joe Rogan literally last night. And when they started talking about this stuff, this kind of gave me the idea of doing this video. And then today I opened up social media. And, of course, all the news agencies and legacy media is having their melties and their freakouts. And that's where I found the articles from earlier. And that's when I kind of all put it together. You know, that you've got Joe Rogan here that's it's not the little, snippets. It's not the little news grabs of Trump saying 4 words and the media saying this and then them having, it's not a screaming match where they're yelling over each other and you can't hear any counterpoints. Joe Rogan, and the reason why I mention these names all together because it's all very similar. Whether it's Joe Rogan or Russell Brand or Jimmy Dore or I'm trying to think of some other big ones that have these like long format shows. Like Steven Crowder, sometimes where he brings on people. Where Dan Bongino, they just have these long multi-hour shows, and they bring on guests, and they have these long interviews, and there's no snippet. There's no, can we do a retake? I didn't like how I sounded in that. Can we go ahead and re-edit this song? No, it's your live, bitch. Like, say what you got to say, and it lets the people see the real you. And the news snippets and the sound clips and the news bites and the editing, that doesn't work on these shows. And that's where these fraudsters and the fake and the liars and the grifters all get exposed. And that's what makes Joe and others like him so powerful. I mean, they literally call it the powerful Joe Rogan. There's a reason, because it resonates with people like us. There's a difference between even my live stream and what I put up on YouTube. Sometimes it's only me taking out a sentence. Sometimes it's me taking out my stuttering. Sometimes I say something and I'm like, I don't know if that really makes sense. I'll just drop it out of there. But there is a slight difference to all of it. Here, when Rogan's just like, boom, we're doing this live, that's what the media can't replicate. Leftists and the LGHD TV and all, they have so many crazy ideas. This will never work for them because they end up saying stupid things, or they end up saying something that's racist or that's really dark and ugly. They can't fake the genuine thing. It just doesn't work for them. That's what scares them so much. And when they do try to do something like this, and people can hear their ideas and their thoughts, and it's trying to explain it, well, it fails because it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't work. That's why they don't do it. People watch Hassan Piker and other leftists like that, and they're on board. But I noticed that Hassan Piker and, I don't know, some other people of his ilk, they never do debates. They don't really go on shows where you could, like long form like this, where you can have the arguments. Because when somebody like Joe or anybody else starts drilling down into their ideas, they fall apart. They don't have any answers. It's real easy to say, we need to fix X. We need to stop Y. But when you ask, okay, how do you fix that? They go, I don't know. Well, then all you're doing is bitching. And look, that's fair. I mean, I do a lot of bitching on the internet. But at least for some things, I have answers. How do you fix divorce? I don't see a good way to fix it. Maybe don't get married. How do you fix custody? Well, we got some good answers to that. How do you fix the... If you don't have an answer, maybe the best thing to do is avoid it. And I think that's why they avoid this long-form stuff, because they get trashed about it. This is why they're afraid of the, quote, manosphere, because it's these men that have logic and reason and intelligence that are leading the way here, and they can't keep up. They have no answer for any of this.
We'll do whatever we can to destroy the people that are that way.
Yeah. And well, and you know, I just say, you know how in like the corporate media world, it's like this is the biggest crime ever to even ask this question? But you kind of can't blame us for asking it when everything you say is a lie. It's like, it's not even just that they're liars who are in the business of propaganda. It's that it's incoherent propaganda. Your propaganda doesn't even make sense. Like, if propaganda point A is true, then propaganda point B is impossible to be true.
Right. Well, they've been so used to doing it before. They had full, complete control of the narrative because they own the media. And they own the media for so long. They had the run of the roost for so long that they got cocky, and they didn't pay attention to the game as it was evolving. They're like a UFC 1 fighter that, you know, takes time out of the gym, then steps into 2024 and tries to compete against guys of today. Like, you missed the game. The game is way past where you were. And you guys are still doing goofy shit, like taking people out of context and not knowing that people are going to make YouTube clips showing what he actually said versus you. And it's going to undermine your credibility even more.
This is one of the big things I think that Joe, the rest of us understand, is it is so now, it's so easy to disprove what the mainstream media says, and whether they wanted to talk about the jabs and the bug, whether you wanted to say something about politics, whether you want to take men and men's issues out of context, no matter what it is so easily pulled apart and destroyed now, because anybody, any idiot with 4 minutes to their of time can go out there and find the actual truth and post it. And I've seen accounts with 2,000-3,000 followers on Twitter get reposted and have 400,000 likes and 500,000 retweets from an account that had 2,000 followers, because they took the time to go splice in something together to show the truth of something and to debunk a narrative. And then everybody shares it, and then it's over. And that's why I say in many cases, men especially are winning the culture war. We're sharing the clips and the news stories and the information of not only just divorce, and marriage and child custody, which are exclusively men's issues, but we're also sharing the clips of movie shows and TV shows and news headlines and the laws that disproportionately attack men, conservatives, stoic, ones that don't want to go with the narrative, the anti-LGHD TV people, kind of like myself now. It's too easily pulled apart, and they don't know how to play the game anymore. And by the time they catch up, there's going to be another generation, Gen Alpha, that is coming into this, that all you have to do is see a lie once. All you have to do is see the bullshit once, and you say, you're the misinformation. You're the one lying. I need to go find a new truth. And eventually there's nobody left. Fool me once, shame on me. Or excuse me, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. A lot of people right now are feeling pretty fooled for listening to legacy media and the rest of it. Ironically, they're even calling themselves legacy media at this point.
They have not adapted to the new world that we're living in now. And you saw there was a lot of evidence of this. Like, these things that used to work now come with a heavy price. So now there's like a cost to playing the game in the old way, but they don't adjust. We're in a new landscape here, and there are these shows on the internet that have much bigger audiences than these traditional shows. Oh, and by the way, I get to go long, and I can really give an in-depth, point on every single topic. Yeah,
because that's a motivation for people that are in that industry. If you're in the fucking industry of being a mouthpiece for network news, like, there's a very narrow window of behavior that you have to operate under. You have to stay inside these lines, and if you're on Fox or if you're on CBC, NBC or whatever it is, MSNBC, anyone, well, you have a narrative. They have a narrative in the office. There's a culture. There's 100%. A way people think about that. And this is your job. So you're going to do the things that you think are going to get you more ratings. You're going to do the stories that are going to get people more outraged. That's how you're thinking. It's the wrong way to think when you're on the internet.
One of the reasons why I'm playing this so long, even though it was all in one episode that I watched last night, is because this podcast or this, video cast by Joe Rogan is viewed more than Morning Joe and Al Sharpton and all the other idiots that are out there screaming about Joe Rogan. They have a tiny audience now of boomers. Joe Rogan has audience of millions and millions and millions every single day. More people are listening to what Joe's saying right now than all the negative bullshit that the mainstream news is yelling about him. Do you see what I'm saying? More people are listening to Joe's opinion of mainstream legacy news than people are listening to legacy news about Joe Rogan. That's why they're losing.
Right. So there's this very powerful social incentive for them to dig their heels in and not admit that oh, the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world with more freedom and prosperity and cultivated the greatest economy and the greatest, music and literature and just everything that is this superpower. Oh, we presided over the bankruptcy, destruction, and the devolving into nothing more than a military industrial complex, big bank, big pharmaceutical, most corrupt nation on earth. And we didn't cover that. We watched all of that happen, and not only did we not cover it, we demonized anybody who covered it. And we were at every, that's very difficult to ever confront. And it's always just so much easier for human beings to just go, nope, the problem is misinformation and Russia and racism.
All right, I wanted to play that whole thing because what they say, again, is it resonates true. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is exactly what we keep saying that legacy media is doing, and they do it repeatedly, and they do it constantly, and we see it. Joe's calling it out. Dave Smith, who's a comedian and a kind of a politico, he's a rabid libertarian. They see it. We all see it. And what they're doing in that clip is they're parroting what we talk about. I've got 2 clips left. This is one of them. And this is what happens, I think, when you wake up. And I mean this as men that become red-pilled and they wake up to kind of how marriage and relationships are. I mean it when you find out that, in my opinion, most government, most politicians, no matter how much you love them, there's always some corruption. You realize there's the industrial military complex and big money taking us to war to profit. When your eyes get open to all of that, there's no closing them again. It's like opening your eyes and looking at the sun. The damage is done. It's permanent. And I think more and more people are continuing to do that. This is a clip that this young gal had posted today, and here's one more instance of saying, my eyes have been opened. Now, I know you guys don't care what a woman, who cares what a woman thinks, but understand that the more women that open their eyes and see the real world through the lens of what it really is versus what they want it to be, whether it's men or women or married people or single people or whatever, the better it is, because then we can recognize and get back to the reality and the truth of things. I'm just going to play a moment of this, and then we'll play the last clip.
So I turned on Fox News just to see what's going on over there, right? And the main thing they were saying was that Kamala lost this election because Democrats were not willing to listen to what the mass majority of Americans wanted. And that might be true, because I genuinely thought that most of the world was for, not the world, most of America was for Kamala. I really thought that. Not being facetious in any way, I genuinely was riding that blue wave and felt like we were really unified in that. Obviously I was aware of the MAGA presence, but I didn't quite realize just how massive it was. So the point of this video is just to open the floor to any of you that support Trump that want to maybe articulate to me what it is about him and his campaign that feels like the right decision for America.
And she kind of goes on for another second about this. Here's the important part. It doesn't matter what you feel personally about this lady or anything. But when somebody messes up, and I'm still a believer in this, I know many of you are not, and that's okay. I know we may not agree on this point. I guess maybe I try to be a realist in many cases, and in some cases I'm pretty black-pilled, but in others I have hope. When somebody like this brushes themselves off and dusts themselves off and said, okay, I totally got that wrong. Will you help me understand what's wrong, what I did wrong? Will you help me understand where you're coming from? Will you help me understand? My answer is, in most cases, yes, when it's done in good faith. The challenge is a lot of people don't do this in good faith anymore. So when somebody like this comes at you with good faith, I think it's smart to say, yes, I will welcome you over here. We will have the conversation. And then if we want to stay opposed, we'll be opposed. If you want to come over on our side of the fence, or our way of seeing the world, I think we should give them that opportunity. Because that's how Joe Rogan went from being like center left to voting for Trump. That's how Elon Musk went from being center left to being on Trump's, maybe his part of his administration. That's how someone like RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and many others just said, okay, I'm on team Trump. Because Trump he's not conservative in really any, he's just a Democrat from 20 years ago. But he at least shook the hands of people that came forward. This is why, in many ways, when it comes to really fixing men's issues, that if you have women or you have other people out there, married people, single people, that say, will you help me understand where you're coming from? And maybe I'll have your back and share your message. This is why, me personally, I think it's a good idea to have that conversation. I think it's good to say, yes, if you want to support our cause as men or as single guys or for, against the laws for divorce and things like this, this is why I think it's good to shake their hand and welcome them versus fuck you, you're all grifters and chameleons and get out. Because, yeah, you've got a real tight group of like-minded people, but you're never going to get any help, you're never going to grow, and you're not going to change other people's minds out there. The fact that Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and Fox News and others now speak to men's issues about men falling behind in education and men failing in divorce and men not getting married and men being disenfranchised in the work world. Those are our talking points, and now it's mainstream. That's the way you get that done, is by being reasonable, by reaching across the aisle to whoever that's maybe not in your camp, shaking hands and having a conversation. To the weirdo, twink, crazy people like
some weird stuff online.
To the weirdo, crazy lefty people like this dude, no, we're never coming to your side of the fence. We're never going to see eye to eye. You either come see our position or you off, and we will ignore you. And should the day come that we will just walk across you. We will trample across you like you're a body in the fields of war, because you're too far gone. Someone like this is too far gone. I just want to make sure that me personally and many of you, we don't get in a camp where we're too far gone. Because when that happens, that's how we start losing ground in the culture war. Lastly, I'll leave it with this. I'm going to bring this full screen again. I do have a dating profile after this. I know I'm going long today. This is what happens when you get indoctrinated and you're too far gone and you're beyond reason.
How does this not go without saying? But white people, white women especially, at this moment, do not go to your black, your indigenous, your immigrant, your queer, your trans. Do not go to that person in your life that you feel is a little bit more oppressed than you are, because obviously you're feeling fucking oppressed, and ask for help with it. I don't care how you voted. I don't care how fucking hard you worked. I don't care. I don't care. You're not an exception to this. Just so we're clear. I thought it couldn't get too much more reasonably worse today in the spectrum of my emotions towards people who look like me. But then you go and do something and totally blow it out of the water.
Huh? Okay. Sure. And there's no coming back from this. This is Gollum. Gollum. This is Gollum from Lord of the Rings. She's just gone. And lastly, a dating profile of the day. I don't have any good music, but here's our dating profile of the day. Now, if we were not looking at this picture and I just said, I'm Megan, she's 38. Well, she's a single mom of 3 teenagers, which means if they're teens, she had them in her very early 20s. I have the start of a small zoo, and I love adventures outdoors. I love photography and travel. I like being spontaneous and want someone who matches my energy. You'd say, well, that doesn't... I mean, yeah, she's got 3 kids, but she's 38. She seems like a reasonable... And then you look at the picture and you say, oh my God. These are the rabbit holes. These are the rabbit holes, my friends. Guys, I know we went long today, and this is just a one-topic video, and I'm over an hour on it. But I really wanted to tear this down today, man, because the media is scared. Legacy media, these journalists, the movie makers, the celebrities, they just... Everything that's happened in the last 48 hours, 72 hours, it was a direct attack on everything they've been spitting forth for the last few years. And now they're scared. And now they're either going to try to change their minds, they're going to try to adopt their tactics, or they're going to try to silence us, and there's not a damn thing they can do about it. Welcome to at least a reprieve, a momentary re-emergence, rebirth of strong men. It's kind of good to be here. I'll read Super Chats in just a minute, guys. Don't forget to join us over on betterbachelor.locals.com. This weekend, of course, we've got, I don't think we have a new UFC event coming up this weekend. I'll have to check. But we got Saturday night at the movies. We do UFC. I think the next one's 308 or 309. We do sports ball. We do some football. And hundreds of us hang out in a chat room where, unlike Rumble, unlike YouTube, you can share inappropriate memes, you can share GIFs, you can share pictures. We have a hell of a lot of fun. Just jump over and go to betterbachelor.locals.com/support. Make sure you click the subscribe. If you just want to buy me a beer, click the give once and you can send a little love my way. But better, click the subscribe, either subscribe monthly or annually, become a supporter, and hang out with thousands of other like-minded men. I think you'll get a hell of a lot out of it. You'll really enjoy it. It's a great place to come hang out. So please come over, become a supporter today. I would appreciate if you did.